If you have followed my previous videos, you know I picked up this Forest Cultivator. It was actually a viewer that offered it up for sale. Big thanks. I didn't pay a whole lot for it. It required quite a bit of work to get going, but this is a bit of a spoiler. I have tried using it. It seems to work. How good it is, the cultivation, the preparation for new plants, I will not get to know really before next spring when I will try to plant this area. But this first video regarding it will mainly be about breaking it apart to the point of getting it operational again. And there will be a second part uh, where I put things back together, and it could still use some more work to be in actually good condition, but more on that later. The summer has been busy with the brush cutter, so it hasn't been a lot of wrenching and suitable stuff for videos, so but I will try to catch up with what little video I have from the summer. And if you have seen the video from me picking it up, you know we had a lot of trouble loading the unit. Unloading it was a lot easier since I had access to some hydraulic muscle to help up. Put one tractor on each side and simply lifted it, and then started the truck and drove that out from underneath. And once it was safely back on the ground, I could start looking at things. Some of the grease points that did exist on it, the grease fittings were circ fittings were bad, so I at first started looking at replacing the ones that were not functioning. At least that went easily. Just needed to figure out what thread they use and could start adding some grease to it, because I don't think this has seen any maintenance for at least 20 years. It's probably been sitting for maybe longer than that even. And some of the grease fittings didn't want to come undone, but some heat usually helps. My dad had placed some pallets around it and lifted it on the off the ground to have it up in the air if we are gonna start trying to move things and turn things and see how easy they move. I wanted to get some fresh grease in there and release the tension on the chains before starting to mess too much with it. The chain here, there is different ratios, a small sprocket from the rubber wheel that breaks the rear wheel with the arms that rips up the ground, but there was quite a bit of rust in areas, and they needed some force and some heat and some wire brush to start cleaning up the threads and to get things to start moving. I would prefer to not have to cut things apart, but with enough heat and some penetrating oil and so on, things started to move. But it was not without a fight. And the wire brush to clean up the threads that were quite badly rusted. Most of the things were actually moving by hand force by this point, except the wheel here. That one was not possible to, but we had seen it spin when we tried to load it, so we knew it wasn't actually seized up, but it required a tractor to be able to move it, so on that side we had been able to release any tension on the chain at least, so we felt confident to start trying to move the wheel around. But the other side took a lot more fighting before the nuts holding the tensioner in place made it off, and it complained a little, but at least it started moving, and that's good. And eventually the nuts were off, a little bit of hammering to get the plate out of the way, and tension is released. And here you can see things move quite freely by hand, so that's good news. Started spraying the chain some, because that one is quite stiff. But and we'll see if they can be saved. Little spoiler, one side could be saved or is being reused for now. I kept pumping in more grease in that seized up wheel and kept moving it around, and it started pushing some nasty looking stuff out from when greasing it. There are also some holes here that used to hold a bolt in place that kept the axle from moving when it was new. I've also been calling this unit a Brekke, but I'm not sure it's Brekke that has produced this. I've learned that there was a company in Robertsfors that also produced similar units like this, and I have no clue what brand this is, but I think it was a commercial built unit. It's not something home built. If someone knows for sure what brand or model this is, please leave a comment. And I removed that chain. I just undid the chain master link, and it came right off. Here you can see one of the what I think is an original bolt, and it's supposed to line up with a little divot in the axle. On the other side, that bolt is broken, and they've added an extra bolt on the outside, and they've done special things over the years. And I guess because the rim on the wheel is not the same on both sides, and I wouldn't be surprised if they have broken apart two different machines, so from different models, and put them back together, one side being a little bit different. But it doesn't really matter. As you can see here, there is a big hole in the sidewall of the wheel itself. I think this has been dragged around quite a bit on flat wheels over the years. So we're gonna look at replacing the wheels. We started feeling how hard it would be if the axle would even move. Lock nut or bolt holding it in place on the other side started moving after some heat cycles and some penetrating oil. Another grease fitting that at first didn't look too bad, but it allowed grease to kind of come back out through it, so it was also replaced. Started working on trying to remove the master link and splitting the other chain also. This one was a lot harder to get apart than the first one, and this is also the side that's in a lot worse condition and ended up being replaced, but I'll get back to that. My dad had also put some wooden pieces to have a steel rod and start hammering out the other axle, and it's actually started moving, and this side actually came out without too much trouble. The other will be a lot harder. Didn't take all that much hammering to get this out, and here we have kind of won the fight. It's out of the frame on the other side and started moving a whole lot easier. With the axle out, the wheel and rim could be lifted out of the unit, and getting that off the rim was gonna be a big struggle. Well, both of them. We did try gently tapping the other side, but this was gonna be a struggle, and here you have to work from inside the frame because it's mushroom out. It was driven in from the outside. Brought out the excavator and had some wooden pieces to protect the sprocket that's on the other side of the rim, and the wheel seems firmly bonded onto the rim or the rubber. With the side, it's a split rim design, or you can remove one of the walls of the rim, and that one actually with some hammering started feeling loose, so the lock ring could quite easily be removed. and then the side of it itself. And then it was a matter of getting the rubber off the rim, and that was going to be a struggle. It pushed hard enough that it lifted up the excavator, and it did not budge anything. My dad tried giving some blows with a sledgehammer, nothing, so cutting the wheel it is. Started with a oscillating saw and came a little bit of the way, and then gave it a little pressure just to have it kind of, here it has started moving a little, but it was on the verge of, it was toasted anyway, the wheel, so cutting a little more. Here I'm yelling at my dad to move a little to the side if the wooden block slips out so it doesn't hit him. And more cutting, and eventually it split in half and came undone. We were able to split the other chain and remove that. And then I missed most of the recording because we added a lot of heat here. We added a lot of hammering, and my dad had built up kind of a whole scaffolding to hold the rod to hammer on inside the frame, but that was not recorded. But it took a lot of hammering to get out. And what was the biggest issue here wasn't the rim and that part, it was this bushing here that it was binding on badly. It should have had a bigger hole in it. I guess at some point they had this laying around, and then it was more of a press fit than a bushing, and rust had gotten in there probably. We cut a slit in it and widened it a little with a chisel, and it was possible to remove this bushing section. Even with the slit and some heat onto that bushing, it was still took quite a bit of force to get the axle out, but eventually it came. And even if this wheel seemed to be kind of a weaker model, the tire itself, it did not want to move even with the help of the excavator, so we ended up having to do the same as the other and cut it to get it off the rim. The lock ring on this one was on there a little better, needed a little more work actually to get this off, but not too bad. Counted the teeth on some of the sprockets. I was gonna look up what kind of money it would be involved buying new sprockets for it. Buying something pre-made that will still require a lot of machining. The best option is probably having someone locally laser cut or plasma cut it out or water jet. And I looked up the prices before I started investing any more money into it. Laid out the chain and looked at them, and one of them is like 2 links longer than the other, or has 2 less links, or one has two more links. I'm not sure how to say it. One is badly stretched. Did some measurements. It's like a 1.5-inch chain, and the better one here actually is not stretched that badly compared to the numbers of a brand new one. So I decided to reuse one of them. But as you can see, the sprockets, at least the bigger sprockets, are quite badly worn, but folded the good chain that's still not, it's very stiff even if it's not stretched too badly. Folded that up into a plastic container. It can soak in some diesel for a couple of weeks or so. I think I'm gonna end this video here, and I will have a part 2 where we put it back together